but here we are. Oh, and now
Yeah,
you're
I just
there.
got a message that you're recording.
Okay, so this is us. So Pier Gustafson is the one that's talking now, and Jason is the one that's talking
right now.
So we've got our cast is here. My cat is not going to interrupt. He's about to take a nap there. So we are going to discuss by popular demand. I think one person made the demand, talk about ink colors. And I did like Jason's recent video showing how different black ink is from one another. And of course, you seeing it in the flesh rather than me seeing it on a phone via YouTube is very different. But we're going to talk about inks. And Jason is the one that will know more about the inks than I do. You have many more inks, but I'll talk about inks colors as well. So I will we'll flip the cameras now, aiming down. We can figure out how to do that. There I am down. You have to hit something.
Yeah, I gotta do that. You should see my ceiling now.
I see you have a very nice ceiling.
And now I'm trying to remember how to flip.
You hit your top of your head. You tap the ceiling on the little tiny picture you have.
Oh,
there you go.
We go.
Perfect. So we've been.
Oh, that's pretty far away.
Well, you can make it be closer if you want. While you're doing that, I will just start talking about my relationship to color. I generally work in black and white because it matches my soul, the black part anyway. Color is something that I normally don't deal with in the work I do. Most of the time, when I do a drawing, I create it in black and white so it can be turned into an engraving or something. And so black and white allows me to get the highest contrast between the line that I made and the background paper. So for that reason, black works well for me. I do occasionally have to do calligraphy on envelopes to match the ink that the letter or the invitation was engraved in, which is sometimes doable. Sometimes I have to mix inks rather than take them right out of the can, right out of the jar. But I can talk about why it's not easy or even possible to match completely. I'll just mention that now. When you make a line using a water-based ink with a fountain pen, you end up having some of the ink on a thin line is going to be lighter, almost like a light blue, and then as you press down, the more ink saturates the paper more and you get a dark blue. So even in one letter, you have two colors of blue or more between light and dark. So if I'm supposed to match a particular color, maybe this part will match, but this part won't, and that part will be too dark. So it's the nature of the calligraphy and pens and water-based ink. If I was using paint, that would be another story, but I don't. Okay, Mister, you're up.
Well, I like black also. That's kind of my go-to for. I don't do much drawing, but just for writing.
Yeah.
It's just there. It doesn't distract or anything, and I can just write. So, one of the blacks I use a lot is Lamy black.
Yeah.
Which, mainly I like this one because the job I do, I write on a lot of lower quality paper, and I want an ink that's just not going to. Headphone just fell out. I think it took my microphone with it.
Okay.
It's just going to, it doesn't feather or bleed through on the lower quality paper. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And yeah, it's just a reliable, nice ink and pretty low cost.
Yeah. Well, the paper quality is a big factor, which we can talk about at another time. I'm sure that there's certain papers that you like that I would agree with are good. Rhodia paper is great, for example. Then there's other paper like Staples tablet paper that you buy cheaply, which is awful. But with me, one of the problems that I have is sometimes, I don't know if you can see the difference between these two colors.
Yeah,
this
one's
is
kind of cream colored.
creamier than this is white, and white paper or off-white paper or cream paper, they're all subtle variations. And if I use red ink on this creamier paper, it'll look oranger, and this paper it'll look pinker. Why is my pen not passing the Pier Gustafson test? Because I did fill it. Come on, Pier Gustafson. So, the paper color makes a difference. The paper saturation level of the paper will make a difference. So it's not just, when you're trying to make something be a particular color, if you want it to look just like it does when it comes out of the jar, it may end up not looking like that because you're writing on crappier paper or yellower paper. The reason it didn't work is I didn't fill it. I thought I filled it, but I don't think there's enough ink in this bottle to come into the pen. So anyway, ink color. So when you're not doing black and you get into a different kind of mood, what do you just say, I want a red pen today, and do you deal with red? Or
Well, it kind of depends. Like during the school year, I want something I can mark up student work with.
yeah,
I don't actually use red very often to do that, but something that's
occasionally.
Different. Yeah.
D plus. It only looks good in red.
That's true.
In fact, that you're just got a D. So, do you have grade inflation there in North Dakota?
Oh, it's everywhere.
Is B the new D?
I don't know. Usually, if they get a B, they're happy. They don't like C's very much.
But when they get a B, do they know what they actually are supposed to have learned?
Usually.
Usually. Okay, good. B. I remember in high school, one of my art teachers gave me an A-, and I went right down to her office and said, "What the hell is this?" And she didn't mean to do that. She just set her pen down and sort of made a little line. So she changed it to an A+, but it was still in my records as an A-. Anyway, so when you're in a red mood, do you particularly choose a red that you say, I'm in a Visconti red mood, or am I in a Parker red, or do you?
If I go for a red, if I really want a red, actually it's kind of off, but Noodler's Black Swan and English Rose.
Okay.
I have a Rattler Eel Red, but mostly I use that because it removes stains from fountain pens.
Okay.
I actually don't like the color at all. The really intense reds are just too cartoonish.
Yeah. Sometimes I know the Lamy red with their little paper dispenser on the side of their bottles. It almost is neon safety orange red. It's a very weird red color.
Yeah,
But I'm a Waterman guy most of the time. I sometimes like Pelikan. Um, but I have ink bottles that, like this one, 1920 something or rather, Waterman Red, still
Oh, wow.
works. And I have this Schaefer Script Royal Blue, which doesn't work as well. But I have like 28 quarts of ink like this. And I use it. I'm not using it for real work. I fill pens that I'm trying to fix and see if they work. The ink is a little bit faded, a little gray, maybe a little watery, but it works perfectly fine for my needs. And I don't have to buy an $11 bottle of ink because I've got gallons of the stuff here.
Yeah, I was curious about that, the older ink, because somebody sent me a sample of vintage Script Red and vintage Script Green, or no, blue, and they were quite faded, and I just wondered, is that how they were back then, or just as it
no,
age?
They fade with age, and some of them that I have are almost light gray. You know, in the bottle they still look like they're blue, but you fill a pen up and it comes out as, it's like the water in your pen cleaning glass. It's just dirty water. But sometimes, like for example, here I put red ink in a pen that I don't remember what pen I was using when I was doing these little doodly bits, and it was kind of fun, and just to see a different color come out. But it didn't make me draw a particular way or something. This drawing was, I had two pens. One was had black ink and one had red ink, and I tried to do a little for the creationists out there where they say, you know, why don't we have a crocoduck and things like that. I was taking, you know, a dog and a swan and turning into a swag. So it was a black dog and a red swan, and it turned into a swag, and the swag and the armadillo turned into a swagadillo. So I was just, but I was using the color more as a example of differentiating the parents originally, but they didn't follow through. The swag and the armadillo became a dwagadillo. How did that work? And the swag dog, poodles, and a poogadillo. So there we go. Anyway, so here the color, using two different colors, was fun, but they're just doodles to me.
Yeah.
You know?
I like to do that with notes where I'll have, you know, usually black is my main color, and then something else just to bring out emphasis or to distinguish things.
Yeah. I like sometimes using sepia, which I've got in here, Pelikan brown, I guess. What do they call it? Brown. Pelikan brown. And it's when I draw with it or write with it, mainly draw, it sort of reminds me of those old master drawings that I see in books and museums where the walnut gall ink or whatever they used fades a bit. So and it's fun, you know, using two inks on one doodle. There's three inks here. I have three pens, each with different inks, black, blue, and red. And I'm just making lines. I'm not doing anything important. But I find that I do get into, you know, I'll fill a pen with blue ink or whatever ink it is. This is purple. And I think, you know, what is it? The rods or the cones that see color?
Cones, because
well, my cones hardly work. I don't think in color. I dream in color, but my eyes are shut. But when I actually look at color, I get sort of seduced by it. Those cones are saying, "Hey, Mr. Gustafson, the world is full of color." So and then I think, oh, this is kind of fun because I sort of see the light purple versus the dark purple, where I don't really pay attention to the lighter black. So it's kind of neat to be seduced by the color. I have the purple. There's very few purple pens in the world, back in the olden days anyway. And this particular pen I use with purple ink because there's little tiny purple lines in between the brown bits in this Waterman. And so this is the pen, the only pen that I have that I use purple ink in. Do you find green inks bleed?
Yeah, a lot of them seem to. I found a few that behave well, but a lot of them do.
Yeah, I don't understand why. I have the same problems with greens, and I don't know what the issue is with green dye or green whatever green is used, chlorophyll, whatever the green is in the recipe, is always bleeding on my. I don't find them that don't. What other colors do you have? They look like there are two different reds you're using.
Yeah, well, actually, this first one is. I mentioned Black Swan and English Rose, but what I have inked up is Australian Rose.
Okay.
It's just a very nice. You were talking about purple, so that made me think of it. It's just a very nice kind of shading purple color.
Yeah, it's like a scarlet, bluer red.
Yeah.
The one underneath looks like it's orangey or.
Yeah, this one's actually a platinum classic Cassis Black, so it's an iron gall ink. And so that's kind of fun because it goes on brightly colored like that, and then it just darkens as it sits on the page.
Yeah. I wonder, thinking of, the Waterman ink bottle I have, and I've got this is a pint, I guess. 16 ounces, is that a pint? I never learned our system of.
Yeah, 2 cups would be a pint, so 16 ounces.
Okay. Well, I have quart bottles as well. And they came in gallon jugs. And they also came in, you could buy, I saw an ad, for Waterman ink. And you could get it in, 32-gallon drums, wooden barrels of ink, red ink. And I thought, I thought the person in the shipping department at the Waterman ink factory would know what company is going to go under, sell your stock and Sears and Roebuck because they just ordered a bunch of red ink. Like, it's very weird that a company would need to buy that much ink.
I suppose back then there was a lot more handwritten.
Well, yeah, you
didn't accounting have a photocopier.
Yeah, accounting firms and banks and things like that. They're all done by hand, but buying that much red ink, would be a little tip. Now you've got what? Purple?
This is a blue. It's blue? I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's a diamine.
Okay.
Skull and Roses.
Oh.
Somebody talked me into it, but it's kind of a fun blue because when it dries, it has a red sheen on it.
Okay, yeah, I do like when that happens with some inks. They sort of dry in various layers of. It's like oil on water. They reflect in a certain way, which is fun. I used to love Prussian blue, or whatever the blue that Pelican made was sort of a greenish Prussian-y blue, and it was really a lovely color. And then Schaefer had their Peacock Blue, which was, I think that was a day when Mr. Schaefer was on vacation or something. And they allowed some underling to come up with something wild and crazy. because the Peacock Blue was really outside of their normal routine. I guess they were making those lady script cert things and those pens, pen PFMs and things like that. So they were already being kind of funny. But Peacock Blue is weird. And blue black, that's another weird thing. There was some blue blacks that would write blue and then change to black. Now, why that was supposed to be a benefit, I don't know.
Well, maybe it's so you can see what you just did. When I painted that ceiling you were commenting on earlier,
Yes.
The paint actually went on a really light purple, but then it dries to white.
Okay. So is that a purple you just used there? I'm sorry. No, it's blue you said.
Blue, yeah.
Blue.
But it's got that sheen. I don't know if this camera picks it up at all.
It's sort of hard to see what your color is, and it looks like my thing here is very dim. Well, that's not helping. I can't tell. My little screen is so small there.
Yeah, I don't know if this helps at all.
No, it's fine. I think in our particular case, it's more the words that are more important than the color that people see on their device when they're watching it. Yeah, so this is this blue turquoise. What's it called? Encre bleu. Oh, it's inspired blue ink by Waterman.
Yeah, Waterman kind of went with a whole name change a few years ago.
Yeah. It's almost like what Schaefer Peacock Blue was. Another thing that happens in my house, Jason, is I will fill a pen, put it down, go have lunch, forget about my desk for a week, and my ink has still yet to be screwed back on the cap. So my inks turn into a sludge. And I end up adding water or throwing it out. It's really been so long since I've actually done pen and ink drawings or even calligraphy for clients that I haven't had the need to be as careful as well, Pier Gustafson, you've never been careful in your life. What are you even thinking? But I just, I find that, I'm not doing the work I used to do. So you have a light blue there, a royal blue or something.
Yeah, this one is this is actually a kind of a fun brand. They were designed, more for vintage pens, although it's modern. Califolio, it's called Blue Azure.
Okay. Yeah.
And they come in these fun triangular bottles, and if you get enough, they make a neat circle on the table.
Okay. The pizza slice method of bottle making.
Yeah.
There was one pen brand that it was Omas, made these beautiful bottles that were faceted globes almost. They almost, and they're really quite attractive, but and they made a gray ink. And I thought, this is great. I'm going to be so happy with this gray ink. And it was really fun to have a pen in your hand and have the result look almost like I was using a pencil, because it wasn't black. It just felt like I was using a pencil. It was really a weird experience.
Yeah, I like that ink. I have a bottle of it.
Almost gray.
Yeah, it comes out it's a little more of a warm gray than some.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a pencil lead.
Yeah.
Almost. And it was sort of it was a weird experience because it looked like I was writing with a pencil with a flexible nib. So, what other inks do you have there?
Let's see.
I have my red, my blue.
I guess I didn't put a green out or anything.
No, I almost put a green out, but I didn't because they bleed so much. Green is a color that I've never been fond of green, and greens are so different from each other. There's Kelly green, there's lime green, there's apple green. They're all a blue seems like they're more related to me. But green they're all different. And some of them can be, in my mind, almost ugly as a line, simple line, because they look too dirty, they look brown, or they look like, if you think of a moss green, it's a lovely thing when you see it on a swatch or on moss in the backyard.
Yeah.
But when you put it on a piece of paper, it looks anemic or sickly or something. Green is just a weird color. I'll just say that.
It's a color I actually really like, but yeah, I agree with you. A lot of the green inks I've looked at just are disappointing.
Well, we had a show in our gallery a year ago. Actually, it was exactly a year ago. We're having a blue show next month. And last year at this time, we had a green show. And I did a lot of drawings on my iPad of things that were green. And I would walk down the produce aisle at the grocery store and drew the cabbages or whatever they were, green beans. And then we have this beautiful green trestle railroad bridge, and I drew that. And someone had a green sports car in the garage. I drew that. And I was really, and then I would draw plants and all that other stuff that's green. But I was really having a fun time seeing all of the different colors of green there were. And I was really enjoying it a lot on my iPad. I don't like them in my pens. I like green pens, but somehow the green ink just doesn't. It's good if you're inviting people to a St. Patty's Day picnic or something. But what are you using there?
I'm back to that platinum ink, that the iron gall ink.
Okay, cool. It would be great if they could make an ink that was white, that wouldn't clog. I would love to draw with white ink on black paper or colored paper. I use it with dip pens, but it's essentially paint you're drawing.
Yeah.
And the same thing with metallic inks. If you put them in your pen, good luck.
Yeah, I've done that, but not with pens that I really care about or that I can take apart.
Yeah.
Like this Noodler's Conrad gets metallic inks if I do anything like that.
Yeah, I mean there are pens that I could easily try out inks like that, and I think if I were to use them and then immediately clean them up afterwards, I would be okay, but I don't want to risk it, I guess.
Yeah, well, you've got that, that narrow little channel that just fills up with it.
And you're using, this is my Noodler's Boston safety pen, and you're using you're still able to use the platinum ink, carbon platinum in your. See, look at this. This carbon platinum ink is bleeding on this paper. My Waterman didn't bleed. Why is this bleeding?
Let's see. Well, mine will probably behave. Let me go grab my pen that has that.
Okay. I didn't mean to move to black. This was, again, an ink that I haven't really tried in a regular fountain pen yet. But it seems to be writing fine in this thing, so maybe I should just try it out with gold nibbed Schaefer pen that has a lot of teeth marks, and if it gets clogged, I'm not gonna be sad.
Yeah, mine usually, I address envelopes with it a lot because then it
Okay.
won't bleed and
Yeah.
or run off. But yeah, it usually seems to behave on, here's just some cheap Post-it paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just acting just fine for me.
It's really funny that this, I don't know, I haven't used this pen for months and months and months. And I don't know whether the platinum ink the carbon ink would go bad or anything. Does
You
it
wouldn't
separate into?
think.
So anyway,
Yeah, because it's
because
different. It's just suspended
I don't
particles.
remember it bleeding like this. So I'll try it out. I'll leave it in the front part of that thing. So color inks. I mean, I have essentially, other than the antique vintage ink I've got, and occasionally, I might, like I did have to do a green invitation, match the invitation ink, and I had to buy a bunch of green ink that I had to mix with other green ink to try to get the correct shade, which was a nightmare. But normally I have maybe 4 colors, red, and they're almost all Waterman. But you must have dozens of reds.
I don't know if dozens,
A dozen.
but
You must have a dozen
a
each.
dozen would be fair.
A dozen. And is there a brand that you prefer over another?
I guess it depends what I'm doing. I guess I have favorites within brands.
Okay.
That's probably the most fair thing to say. I trust Califolio in any pen.
Okay.
Like I wouldn't put my Noodler's ink in, for example, this pen.
Yeah. Noodler's ink doesn't run fast enough for me. I believe it would fail every Pier Gustafson test because it's too thick. And if you write, like a normal person writes, or maybe draw like a normal person would render with, sort of short, deliberate strokes, I think it would keep up with me. But because I'm flying all over the page, they always seem to be slow to me. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like Waterman so much, is they seem to flow so well. And I tend to like their colors. Their color black is a little cooler than Parker. It's a little bluer looking to me. I'm covered in ink. What have you done to me, Jason?
I know that I've never actually tried Waterman inks for some reason. But yeah, my biggest thing with the Noodlers is, right now this is going to be fine. Yeah. But it seems like when they sit in the pen for a day or two, they are very, very slow to dry on the paper.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another problem that I had. And I talked to Nathan, who makes these inks, and I said, Nathan, your inks don't dry, and that's because I'm not using shitty enough paper, he said.
Yeah.
You have to use shitty paper. And I said, I'm not going to do that. Use good paper. And they sit on the top of your paper, and whatever chemicals are in them that make them last forever, they just want to keep partying, I guess. They just want to keep playing.
Yeah, I think when I watch his videos, he uses just ordinary copier paper.
Yeah.
But like this wouldn't look as nice on regular copier paper. It wouldn't have that nice
No, it would be
shading in it.
dark. It would be darker, and it would be fuzzier. Just deader. It would be deader. The paper, I love paper that's hard, and the ink isn't just sucked into it, but stays on top and dries, and then you get that iridescence sometimes that you like in the color.
And was it the clay content or something? I can't remember the
I don't
technical term.
know. I don't know what it is, but I draw on paper that I'm not supposed to draw on. I draw on photo paper sometimes. I draw on. I did a bunch of drawings the other day. Actually, here's some samples. I went out drawing the Longfellow house with the Urban Sketchers, and the Longfellow house is this 3-story tall colonial, I don't know what kind of architectural style it is, but has white columns in front and white windows and black shutters, and the house is yellow, big yellow house. And so I brought with me to draw on these Benjamin Moore paint sample things. And I was just going to draw on the yellow samples, but look at what happens to this ink. It's very smooth, but the ink beads up. It doesn't actually sit on the paper. It's like painting on a house, because
like there's some wax in it.
Well, it's house paint, or this is silk screened paper.
Oh.
I mean, the ink is actually silk screened on these papers, and the ink beads up on it, though it's not beading up as much as it was when I was drawing. But I was having a hard time drawing, and then I would take my water brush that I had and mushed the ink around on that, and that would bead up. You see what it's doing?
Yeah.
And it was really fun to draw on this, because it was not behaving correctly, and it was allowing me to come up with all sorts of really neat effects, which I can show you right here. I've got the actual drawings I did right here. So here's a little column or little carved wooden thing on the side of the door, volute kind of thing. And it was just really a fun way to draw on something where the ink was not doing anything that it's supposed to do. And I was mushing my finger around, finger painting with my ink from my pen. So I'm sure Noodler's ink wouldn't work on this stuff either. But look at it; it's just sitting here. The ink will dry, but it's neat. And I also did drawings the other day using and this is meant to be written on. It's a vellum envelope, so it's really stiff, transparent tracing paper. And the ink is going to sit on the top of this too for a good long time. But it takes any color you put on it, and it grays it down, it waters it down. Black turns gray, red turns pink. It's sort of an interesting look at the end of it, and it's also very fun to write on because it's so smooth, and you hear it. There's something about the sound that the pen makes running across this paper that's kind of a delight.
Looks almost from here. It looks almost like tracing paper.
Vellum is a tracing paper, but it's thicker.
Okay.
It's used by architects often for back when they used to design with this. I've used lots of paper, and you've used almost your page up. Shall we go back to our faces to say goodbye?
Yeah, we can do that.
And maybe talk about what we might talk about next time. So
Sure.
let me turn that around. Here I am. Boy, you've got all sorts of stuff there.
Well, you're looking at what this is actually attached to here.
Well, yeah, but you have another one out.
Yeah, that's what I'm usually doing in my videos. I use that one.
It looks like way in the distance you had this speaker. You're in a garage band too?
That shouldn't be a speaker. You're looking at my bedroom closet there for a minute.
Well, there was something that looked black, like it was it looked like it was speakers for something.
I have some cloth drawers out on the floor because I was putting some clothes away and I didn't finish.
See. Okay. So I think, what did we learn today from each other?
Well, I actually, the thing I found interesting was your use of different non-traditional kinds of paper for doing your art. That's just not something I think of.
Yeah, I mean, we both are attacking our use of pens from such different points of view. You write words and I doodle. And it's interesting that we both use the same tools for doing these things. And I love the fact that we don't do the same thing. And I think that people that are watching us will enjoy our little, I don't want to say they're battles, but our little discussions about how we approach pens and using them. Talking about paper is something we could do next time. We could talk about, I think you're a poster. You put the cap on the back of the pen.
Actually, very rarely. The only pen here that I posted was this really little Parker Challenger.
Okay. So you normally don't post?
Yeah, but this one is, just about have to.
Yeah. Okay. I know there are a lot of people that don't post at all out of just the posting a pen is an abomination or something. I don't know what. They just don't think of doing it. And so I want to have a discussion with someone about that. I could have a discussion with you about that. But what other, paper types is such a, it's so, there, we could talk for decades about paper. So I don't, but from my point of view, it all has to do with the purpose. I don't know what it has to do with, I guess. I haven't figured it out, but
yeah.
I know you do write in your journals, you write in, journaling, writing in a bound book is different than writing on a flat piece of paper. But I'm sure we'll come up with something, I'm sure.
Well, we could even do just something as simple as types of paper one week, and then bound and not bound.
I mean, we can. I mean, I like the fact that the conversation can go really anywhere. It could even be sort of a pens in use kind of a thing. Just what Pier, what are you working on this week? What pens do you have filled? And I could show you the pens that I have filled, and we can talk about sort of the things we do with the pens. I don't want to see your students' work and all of your B minuses.
Yeah, I can't show that.
You can't show that,
but FERPA or something, I'd get in trouble.
But, I don't mean to have you do that or to show your novels or things like that, but it is that's another thing that one can talk about at some point. Before we say goodbye to our collective audiences, do we have anything we want to say goodbye to them about?
I'd say just enjoy the world of color and You know, if you like to settle down to just one color, just enjoy the heck out of it.
Yeah,
The main thing is to use them.
Yeah, and maybe we could ask our audience, what is your favorite blue? What is your favorite, and that's not just the, why. I always like to have people say why they like a particular color. Just saying I love Parker 51s isn't explaining anything to me. I want to know
Yeah.
why they want that. So why do
Well,
you
that's
like
where the
this blue rather
conversation
than that?
starts.
Yeah, and it does, for a comment in a YouTube video, it doesn't have to be an essay. I really like Peacock Blue because it reminds me of my grandmother's patio furniture. That's all they need to say. So, you and I will talk for a few minutes after we're done, but we'll say goodbye now. So goodbye now.
Bye, and thank you for
Goodbye.
watching.
Thank you. Bye now.